Good afternoon, everybody. We are back. I appreciate you guys joining us again. We are here for episode 4 of Full Swing. This is the Imposter Syndrome episode. So, as we get ready to talk about Full Swing, we've been doing this as a collab. I'm going to bring my main man in here from the Pinehurst 6. Greg, welcome back, man. I'm loving it. Look at the Tiger shirt. This is great. How are you feeling?
Oh, I'm feeling great. This is going to be a fun episode. We're not going to get nearly in the woods as we did last episode, and it should be a lot more friendly. So, looking forward to it.
A lot friendlier. Hey, speaking of last time, it was an end. Last week was such an intense bringing Liv to the table, and we didn't maybe get as deep as we wanted to. Ian, I know he's your boy. He just sent me a text like, "Hey, let him know. We'll talk about getting together soon." What do you think? What was your final intakes on last week's episode?
Hey, Ian did what's best for him. I think it was very pointed when he said when he joined the PGA Tour, it was his best opportunity to play against the best people in the world. And then Dylan DeChair immediately came in. Good editing on their part. Dylan DeChair immediately came in and said, "Hey, just keeping his tour card every year is impressive right now for Ian Poulter." So I do think that going on Live is kind of his best opportunity to play against good competition year in and year out, because he might have been out of the PGA Tour in a couple of years. So
that is a great insight. I love that that you've got that deeper look into these episodes. And I think this has made a lot of these conversations about these reviews so great. With that being said, I think it's going to play over into this particular episode as well. So let's bring back the best moderator in Duffers Golf, Barbara. Welcome back.
Hello, gentlemen.
Thank you so much for always doing this and keeping us in line. What were your last intakes on last week? It was a lot. I mean, Live Golf. So we took a lot in that.
Here's the thing. It's so funny that because I was listening into you two talking about Ian. Ultimately, I really like him. I really am an Ian Poulter fan. And whatever I think about anybody else going to Live Golf is separate and distinct from that. I love Ian Poulter. I'm a fan for whatever he needs to do for his family and by extension for his game of golf. So I really loved last week. I loved all the banter that we had, but ultimately I'm an Ian Poulter fan.
However, this episode may change that mind. This was a great episode. We're joined again by the professor. Welcome back.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you joining us in. And as always, the lovely Mrs. Thompson is joining us back again. One of her favorite episodes, as well. So this is going to take an entirely different twist in perspective than we did last week. This, for me, is a Duffers episode. So much that was said, I think, was relevant to amateur golfers. I think we have a lot of the feels. We have a lot of the mental parking spaces that you hear throughout this episode that I think every last one of the golfers on here can attest to, which I think at the end of it, everyone was like, Joel, who? Like, where'd this guy? Like this is, I think, is even kind of the trending feeling across the internet right now. I think everyone came out of this going like, Joel, who? Matter of fact, I sent Greg a clip that was just kind of a funny montage by St. Andrew's golf team there. That was like, they were like, hey, Joel, like it was one of the funniest clips I saw put out of there. What did you think of that?
Yeah, those guys do a great job. They're hilarious. But yeah, him just being like, you know what, Joel, you're my boy. I'm moving forward with you. I feel like that's how we all felt. I don't know. I think that Joel Dahmen wasn't a huge name. I certainly knew who he was. I didn't know any of his backstory or anything like that. So yeah, I think this episode shed a light on him in a very positive way, and I think we've got a lot of Joel Dahmen fans moving forward.
So this brings up a really unique talking point that I kind of wanted to maybe start this off with. We just did the Big Live episode. You now go into this episode where I could have honestly told you never knew who Joel was. Would have never known him until this episode.
I knew the hat, but I didn't know
I
what
was going to say, everyone knew who he was because of the hat.
Yeah.
Yeah? I didn't know who he was. But again, I'm a biased. I'm a Tiger fan. Unless Tiger's playing, I'm not really watching. I'm out trying to golf, right? But this whole episode, Full Swing, has gotten me into like such a different space on who's trying, right? Who are the names now that you have this Live Golf? You've basically taken the top, what would you say, 40, 50% of the, what used to be the top 150 and moved them out and have made room for so many more names. And I think this is the episode that kind of like, oh shit, look at who these other, I have a shot. Barbara, lead us into the conversation.
That's interesting that you say that about that. One of the things that I love, let's just get started, that it's called imposter syndrome. And as a coach, because I'm also a coach, imposter syndrome is something that everyone goes through at one point or another. And so the fact that they named it that is pretty great. And the fact that he is just the most relatable guy to a Duffer that there is. That being said, I mean, he is a championship golfer, so there is that. I want to start this off with really asking you, what was it about his story that really like hit you in all the fields? Because I think he did that. He ended up doing that because people really got to understand why he does what he does. Let's start there.
I don't have a problem starting this one off. I think when he talked about his mom passing and that he was kind of lost and just like a leaf blowing through life. And he came to a point in his life where he's like, well, I got to decide, do I want to go get a job or do I want to try and make golf my job? And that's kind of what directed his path in life. I could go on from there, but like I'm sure we're gonna end up talking about the rest of the episode. So right. I mean, that's what really, that was hook, line, and sinker right off the bat for me. I was like, all right, yeah, I'm gonna like this episode.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, my first note for this episode was, hey, fuck cancer. It's awful. Yeah. Obviously, yeah, his mom dying. He says he was a leaf blowing in the wind. His wife chimes in, says, he was partying. Like we all deal with grief differently. It takes us on crazy stories. The fact that he was able to get back into golf is incredible. I think he has just an insane story. But yeah, I think maybe the bucket hat isn't for me, but the cancer with the line across it on the bucket hat, that's definitely for me. My family, cross our fingers, hasn't really been touched by it. My mom's best friend, who I considered an aunt, I knew her as Aunt Cece. She passed away from breast cancer. So I'm very big on the, big anti-cancer, obviously. I think we all are. But to hear how it's touched his life, not only with his mom, but with him going through it, yeah, you can't help but feel for the guy.
Dustin?
Yeah, I think he has a unique perspective compared to some of the other players. And I mean, at the end of the day, he does win golf tournaments. He just doesn't win majors when other names are necessarily in there. But he has made a pretty good living the last few years winning golf tournaments. And, as the other player said, when he wants to play well, he's got a great game. But there's a part of him that I think that he doesn't necessarily want to commit because of what it takes to be a Rory or a Tiger or Dustin Johnson and the sacrifice side of that he wants to enjoy what he has and make sure that his life is in that balance and in perspective with what's really important.
So you think he's a status quo golfer?
I don't mean to jump in front of you, David, but to what you just said, Dustin, you don't think that it's maybe because he knows life is too short and he's not putting all of his eggs in one basket? Like he's not taking anything too seriously because he knows how quickly it can end.
Yeah,
so,
same thing. He's got a perspective that he's not really willing to make all of the sacrifices. If he goes and starts sacrificing for his game and practicing at the level that he needs to be practicing and living, eating, breathing golf, then he knows that he's seen predecessors in the PGA that have had to sacrifice other things. And cancer being a big driver where life is short, he's not willing to make those sacrifices. But he's also willing to kind of make it light so he doesn't have to commit to it.
Right, because let's not forget, and David, I don't mean to interrupt, but let's not forget, yes, his mom having cancer might have been the catalyst, but then he got cancer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, oh, good God, can the story get more and more intense? So, David, I didn't want to interrupt you, but, you know, cancer plagued his life.
And that's where I guess my question to Dustin, like to her view, was it, do you think he just prefers being a status quo golfer? Like, I can make a living in 10th place, right? He doesn't want to, he doesn't have maybe that animalistic, like, I want it, I need to be number one. If I'm not number one, then I'm not worth it. Or do you truly feel he doesn't think he's worth it, and he's just okay, you know, being the status quo golfer?
I think that, I mean, he and his caddy have a really interesting relationship, right, from a friendship perspective. And I think him now having a baby will also alter some of this a bit. But if you take in the episode about what the qualifying for the Open, and he was just throwing it basically away, having some White Claws, just, you know, laying back, when his caddy kind of gave him a bit of a, hey, what are we doing here? And the understanding he talks about, if he doesn't make the cut, his caddy doesn't get paid either. And the amount of people that kind of depend on him, that there's a bare minimum that he knows he needs to play. And I think that if he starts winning majors, I think he's scared of what the expectation will be of him to stay there. And what will be the storyline if he chooses, whether that's a choice of his or his game, to not stay at the top. And I think that he doesn't want that pressure. So he's trying to stay away from it a little bit.
So I actually think part of the beauty of this episode was that he pretty much laid that all out for us. It wasn't like we had to kind of figure it out. Right. Like he literally says, I do just enough. Like I'm not a top golfer. I can make a living at it. I'm thankful. I don't even think he's on the tour if it's not for his caddy. That's how well the episode was presented to me. Because I think he'd be out partying or doing something different. Like, I think that whole dynamic and the caddy, like, I think the beauty of the episode is that he doesn't hide anything. It's just, he tells it as it is. And the story was portrayed as it is, but you still want more.
Yeah, well, that brings us into that relationship with the caddy. Like, they've known each other since they were young, and he basically sent him an email and said, I want to be your caddy because I actually think you're one of the best golfers. And so it's like, you know, it's a Cinderella story, you know, like where they have like this bromance on the course. And I do believe, like Kendall is saying, that part of what keeps driving Joel is the caddy. And so do you think that he has a big role to play in Joel's game and therefore life?
Yes. I think every caddy plays a major role. I think for all the Duffers here, they love that it was a best friend type of scenario, that he could call no bullshit at any given point in time, that he can call him a boner, you know, out on the freaking course, you know, that you wouldn't and even joke about it going, I don't think there's any other caddy out here today that is called, you know, the thing, a boner, you know, like that I think is what's made them such a success together. And I truly think some of the best golfers, it's their right hand. I mean,
Absolutely.
look at the stretch of Tiger. You know, without Stevie, I don't think he would have had the numbers he would have had. But that kind of puts a pin on the same thought of going, okay, in Joel's perspective, do you think he's just more like, hey, I just want to win when I can win, or I want to take home checks where I can want to take home, and not be forced down this. I feel like the later golfers, it's all about the majors, and it's partially to will Tiger break that record? Will he take down Nickel? You know, like it's like it's a major. If you're out here not trying to win majors, you're just not out here. Where I feel like everything about this is if he never won a major, he'd still be one of the happiest golfers on the planet.
Yeah, so I'm the type of person. So when I watched these, and I didn't know a lot about him besides, oh, he's the hat guy. While watching the episode, I was doing just research, like, who the heck is this guy, and what does he want, and what does he? And one of the things I thought was really interesting is there was a 2020 interview with him where he said, look, there's 2 PGA tours. There's the PGA tour and there's the PGB tour. I'm just happy to be on the PGB tour and winning money to support my family and those around me. And he kept talking about these 2 tours that Dustin Johnson and those big names are going to be on the PGA tour, but the rest of us are all on the PGB tour.
And to that, what do you guys think of him just kind of being a journeyman golfer and being okay with kind of, he says somebody has to be the 70th golfer. He said that, you know? So how do you feel? I mean, do you like that? Do you not like that? Does that, you know, turn you off from rooting for him? Or do you root for him more?
Somebody had to be Duffer one.
I actually think that I think that this episode put him in the spotlight for him saying that, because there's been those guys since the end of time. There's been plenty of golfers that have made a great living for years, 20 years, and never known. I actually think that's a beautiful situation. Some people actually might prefer that. I wouldn't personally want to be in the limelight. I wouldn't want to be the guy that's interviewed every single second or on every commercial or any of that. If I could be the guy that spent 20 years on tour, finishing 50 to 70th and made a killing and doing something I love and never had to do an interview and never had to do an endorsement, I'm a happy camper.
Yeah. I know a lot of actors who have made their entire career from acting.
Kevin Bacon.
You don't know who they are. But
Yeah.
What'd you say?
Kevin Bacon.
But no, you know who Kevin Bacon is. That's the thing. It's like
That's because it's 6 years. Here's the question:
I actually do know Kevin Bacon.
So here's the ultimate question you have to ask: do you know Kevin Bacon, like as Kevin Bacon, or did everyone really begin to know Kevin Bacon when they came up with 6 degrees of separation up?
Well,
that's where I think all of a sudden was like,
I mean,
holy crap, he is
many movies. I have 1 degree of separation with him, but he's been in very many movies. But anyway, back to it. Like Dahmen is a journeyman golfer, right? And so he's fine being, if not only the middle of the pack, a little bit less than middle. So, Greg, what are your thoughts? Because we haven't really heard from you that much about Dahmen.
Yeah, you know, I think Joel still competes. I think that him saying, hey, you know, somebody's got to be the 70th best golfer in the world, I think that's a little mental gymnastics on his part. I think that's him tempering expectations, not getting too far into his own head about it, and just saying, hey, you know, I'm providing for my family with what I'm doing. Because if he starts expecting to win majors for himself, then maybe that's too much of a letdown. Maybe he can't deal with that. I think he's just tempering expectations.
Do you think everyone who's a golfer and a PGA golfer, should everyone be going for being the top golfer?
100%. Every time
you know, as a competitor, you want that. As fans, I think we all watch the TV and think all those guys think they should be number one. And that's probably not realistic. You know, you don't watch the NBA and think all of those guys think that they're going to be Michael Jordan by the end of their career. I'm sure there's a lot of guys that are playing 8 minutes a game that know their role. and know their space in basketball history. And, same thing with the PGA Tour. Joel Dahmen knows his space in golf history. He says that he'll never win a major, but hey, we just saw him finish top 10, and he was tied for the lead going into Sunday. So I don't know. Will he never win a major? I think he's got the game for it.
Greg, going back to your point and analogy of like everyone thinks you're going to be the Jordan, I think what people don't realize in sports is the ones that make it, it's not always the best ones. The ones that make it figure out their role, right? So like I'll take hockey or basketball, anything else. Not everyone can be a Jordan. So once you figure out that you're not the superstar anymore and you can fill a role in those sports, you can have a long career filling that role and make a very good living. Same with golf. I think he feels like that's his role. He found a role, and I think not enough golfers do that, and that's why he's been successful enough to stay on tour. But the mental gymnastics, I'm not sure about, because if you watch him work out, he's just as lazy with his workout as he is with his practice regimen. So
that brings a very strong point. Like I like Dustin's, point to his interview of PGA versus PGB. Right. Yep. And you make an analogy on Michael Jordan. Right. Well, I'm from Chicago. I'm a Jordan fanatic. I know that whole history of the 90s. I don't think Jordan would have been Jordan without Scottie Pippen. I don't think there would have the supporting cast. He would have never been the GOAT of basketball without the 90s Bulls. So when you look at this in this perspective and go, I look at this, and one of the questions you wrote down is, can talent be brought down by disbelief? And I think this is exactly what this episode is. If he actually believed, I think he might. I don't think he'd be fighting for 70th. I think he'd be in the top 20.
I agree.
I think that was shown when he was going through the qualification for the Open, and they're talking about catching the next flight on the first round, and I think if I get out of here, and they're just kind of lax about it going into the second when he's makes the cut, but then when he's actually in the Open and now he makes a run and is tied for first, and he says going into one of the interviews, he's like, yeah, Joel, can you sustain it? Right? He's already downplaying himself in front of the interviewers before he even gets asked a question. So he's setting the stage a bit, but then when he went into Sunday still ranked high, he was like, okay, I'm taking things a little bit differently right now because I'm actually here, and this actually means something. So he's got the ability to do it. He's just comfortable putting an arm's length to it and making the joke before somebody else can make the joke about it.
But that brings up the episode where Scheffler, where they show him and he's talking about it, and his catalytic goes, it's just another day. You did this yesterday. It's another day of golf. Like, just go out there and play the way you did yesterday, where you saw him going to Sunday, all of a sudden, like, I want to compete. And I think all of us from a Duffer perspective was like, give him a White Claw. Like, that would have got him where he needed to go. So, I mean, I think it's the telltale of, all golf. It's not the physicality, because it's the one sport against all sports that you could say, damn, any body type can come out here and play, right? It's the mental piece. Is, are you enough to put in the extra effort to be, to Dustin's point, PGA, right? Are you in the A class? Or are you, to the professor's point, I'm just happy being in the B class. I think from a fan's perspective, a Duffer, everyone levitated to Joel's story, because it was like, hey, I get you. I get it. I think I could be better too if I went to the range this morning versus, sleeping in, right? I think there's that, if you put the effort in, you could be better at whatever you're doing.
Yes. And I want to bring up, Duffers, when your Duffers are out on the course, you're having a couple of drinks. Does that make your golf game better or worse? Whoever has a drink, let's raise your glass. There we go.
Well, it's empty.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, right? So then he's like going, he's not even gonna, participate in the second 18. He has a couple
His new
of
sponsor.
White Claws. How many did he really have?
Exactly. Yeah.
You
I
know?
tell my wife I had a couple beers every time I play golf.
So to the point, like he is the guy that you can relate to because you guys are doing that. Maybe not White Claw, but you guys are doing that. So how does it feel to root for him? Because he's kind of like he's you. He is the most relatable, at least from the series so far that we have.
From Duffers rules, right? And when we go out and play, we always start crazy competitive. We always like, oh, I'm scoring low. Kendall, I'm kicking your ass today. You don't have a shot at this. Then you go out and you get your first par or birdie. You start taking shots. And usually the next couple holes, you're like, oh, yeah. You stop thinking about beating him and you just kind of find a rhythm. And usually what we find with most Duffers is, all right, cool. That's where the extra shots start to roll up. And then the back nine is, yeah, you can't handle your liquor, buddy. And then you realize how much of a Joel you are. Damn it, I'm okay with the 90 today. I didn't hit 100. So yeah, it's completely relatable. I thought it was a great episode, but here's a question: did you think it was a filler episode?
No,
No,
I don't think it was a filler episode.
no.
I think it was a good bridge episode because again, you can't always talk about the top golfers of the world. There are other golfers there, and because of what we're seeing now, where there's no names, we were just at the Waste Management Open. And at one point, we looked at the scoreboard, and we're like, "Who are the top three guys?" Like names we have never seen before. And so
I knew
think
more of the people in the pro-am than I did actually who showed up to play the Waste Management.
I think it was one of those episodes that's kind of resetting. Like there are other golfers here again that are making paychecks. They're just not the big splashes, right? They're not the big characters to draw back to previous episodes that we're talking about, and also future episodes when they start talking about sponsor responsibilities and sponsorships and how much that plays into the top golfers. I think the question is, without the alcohol, with playing in the dark is the same thing, or just that one shot he had where he's like, I can't see anything, and the commentators are like, oh, this is a terrible shot, this is that. It goes back to that caddy again. This is one of those, I think it's just such an interesting show of the power of the caddy. When in the beginning of the episode, Joel says, he could be on tour, not me. He doesn't have to be caddying for me. He could be playing his own. And when he comes out and the advice that he gives him and the trust that Dahmen has with his caddy to line up his putt, to say, here's the direction you're going to go, point this direction and just fire away. And should I go with an 8? Nope. You want to go with a 7. And that advice and that relationship and the dynamic and trust that they have is making him the golfer that he is. I think that you can take away the white claws and he's still going to play the way he is. You take away his caddy and you give him any other caddy, even another good caddy, I don't think that he plays even half the golf that he does now.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I don't think that was a filler episode at all. I view like shows as like it's the same as a song, right? Good songs or good shows will take you on a journey. So you have to have peaks and valleys. So I thought the first one was a great intro. The second one gave you the good and the bad, like the even keel guy with the guy that's the bad boy. And then you went to full gangbuster live. And then you have to bring it back down before you get to the buildup of the finale of the song. So
yeah. I think, the first few episodes, we're talking about names that most people know. Now we're getting to humanizing the PGA Tour and saying, hey, there's this guy that, flashed a bunch of guys at the Waste Management Phoenix Open.
Oh my God, that was amazing.
And he's on tour and he's doing this thing. And I view professional golf as a team sport because it's the golfer and it's the caddy. They're a team. They're doing their thing. And I don't think there was a better pairing to really bring that home than there was Joel Dahmen and Geno. So I think this was the perfect episode to bring that to light, to show everyone not only to Dustin's point, the PGB side of the house, but also the team dynamic of player and caddy. A story on the White Claw front. So a couple years ago on our trip down to Pinehurst, our first round, I played stone cold sober. I shot a 102, and I was pissed because this is a week-long tournament, and I pretty much played myself out of it. So I thought. Second round, I had 9 beers on the front 9 and shot an 84 and played myself right back into it. So do I think that the White Claws might have helped his game? Yeah, maybe a little bit. I don't know.
Oh, I agree. I mean, let's be honest. How many? I mean, Ian Poulter, we didn't address it, but there was a handle of freaking Tito's in his locker. Come on. I think it's more relevant than we realize, and I think Full Swing is bringing that. Holy smokes, they're more Duffer-esque than we realize. They just put a hell of a lot more time into their craft, right? They're still golfing just like everybody else. Ian's got a full handle of Tito's in his locker. Joel's out here slamming 12 packs of freaking White Claws. We all know John Daly's on his own planet. So I don't think we're far off. I think it's effort and ability to focus and maintain.
So to that, let's talk about him famously stripping his shirt off on the 16th hole. So, do you like it more? Do you not? Do you agree with the PGA? Because he got in trouble.
I honestly thought it was unique that the PGA fined him. That was a cool insight, but it also goes to show you that the waste management, and I can say this now after going for 2 years, I wouldn't have never been able to make a statement that I can today, that it's the only tournament in PGA roster in no matter what tournament, or bet like Corn Ferry, whatever, that is the asterisk tournament that has grown into such a publicity party that
it just happens to have golf.
That it's like, what? Yeah, exactly. It just happens to have golf. I watched a clip on is it Doma? God, I wish I could remember the guy's name. He's a golfer. He was at the tournament. He hit a ball just errant outside into the crowd. He goes, they push the crowd back, everything like that. He hits the shot. Crowd, fills in. He's trying to work his way through the crowd. He's like, hey, excuse me, can I get through him? She's like, I got a boyfriend. And he's like, I wasn't asking you for a number or anything like that. I'm taken. I don't know what you don't understand. I'm just trying to play golf here, lady. She was completely oblivious that she was at a golf tournament, and he's sitting there like, hey, you're supposed to be here watching me. Can you let me back onto the field? Because he's trying to play back into the fairway. It was one of the funniest clips I watched in a little mini interview, because I'm going, I could totally believe that 100% after walking the grounds at that tournament.
Did you say he got fined? Did he get fined?
He got fined. The PGA fined him for taking his shirt. Apparently not supposed to take your shirt off.
So I think for that event, I agree with you. It's an asterisk. People are throwing their beers. Like, I did the 16th hole. Like, you know how many tops came off at the 16th hole? Like, I mean,
definitely not just his and Harry Higgs.
So, I mean, that should have been an exception to the rule.
It's streakers this year. It was, everything's fine.
And one thing about who he is, he's aloof. It's like kind of his persona, right? And he doesn't seem to put a lot of importance on anything. Because even in the scene when he and his wife go to buy the stroller, he's just as aloof about that as he is about his golf game. So this is not like he's putting something on for golf.
So I love that scene, and this is me because I'm watching all the behind the scenes of golfers. I had laughed of going, who the hell goes to a boutique stroller shop? Must be nice. What the hell? I'm sorry, when my kids, I was at Kids R Us. I thought that's where everyone got a stroller. I didn't know a boutique stroller shop existed. I didn't realize there was Rolls Royce versions, of strollers.
Buying 2 strollers at the boutique stroller place as well.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah, going back to I think it was like the last episode when we were talking about like mentality and golfers that care and that don't care. Like the ones that like I really don't care what anyone thinks. I think they have an advantage. And there was last episode I think we talked about that. I think he has an advantage against other golfers if he starts to believe a little bit because he doesn't care what other people think. So I view that as a strong point to, especially in golf, because it kind of just inherently gives you thick skin because you don't care, right? So if he does get to a point where he wins something major, I think he could actually have a trajectory that would sustain just because he has that mentality.
Right. So
Me
what
personally.
happens? What happens when you actually start to believe in yourself?
Oh, I think miracles can happen when you start to believe.
Yeah.
I'm at least one of those that I believe in. You can speak things into existence. I've seen it on the course. We've got it. We've got the footage. Like, hey, you're razzing each other, and you're like, dude, I'm gonna hit this right out of the sand and right in the cup. And it's like when you just take all the static out, and it's like you can see it. I remember my coach just telling me back in high school, like, one of the biggest things, like, he goes, is you have to be able to see it first. Then you can go and execute it. If you could see it, then it's completely feasible. So if you can do that, mind's eye, and I think that's where, and we haven't really brought it up. I think it's one of the pieces that when people talk about Tiger Woods, the fear of playing against Tiger Woods is because nothing could rattle him. You could be playing next to him, and everyone was like, dude, I could be playing the best game of my life. Shit, I just got paired with Tiger Woods. And it would immediately cost them 4 strokes because they mentally beat themselves down.
The mental side of it, yeah.
Right. They're standing next to one of the most prolific golfers, of all time, where he has also the capability to stand there and just cut out anyone around there. Only person he hears is his caddy. Right. And for Joel, if he just listened to Geno, man, he would I think he truly would elevate himself to another level of golf. But I don't know if Joel really wants to be there.
Let's say if you I think that idea of being able to see it, you sub Joel for another up and coming golfer, I think then that belief impacts. I think for him, when he walked into the Open and Rory and those guys are sitting at the table and they're like, yeah, he's playing pretty good right there. They all believe in his play. And I can't remember who they kept interviewing. Was it Homa? Somebody they kept interviewing with him.
Yeah, Homa, yeah.
Homa. That was the guy at the tournament, waist management.
Yeah, all he has to do is start thinking that he could win this thing. His game is scary, and everybody on the field, I don't want to say everybody on the field is watching out for him, but they're kind of keeping one eye to say, like, is he playing good today or is he playing bad today? Because if he's playing good, we all need to watch him where we might just blow him off normally. But I don't think that he will ever, if he starts winning, I think he would do something to make sure that he doesn't win the next one. I think he's that guy.
Yeah.
Here's a question I have for the entire panel, because I think we've seen it across all 4 episodes. Because we've talked about it. Everyone having their peaks and valleys, right? Tiger's run, to success was done for so long with it was just golf, 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 golf. You look at Jordan, Rory, Ricky, like all these guys, they took the Tiger road. I'm going to train. I'm going to play. I came out. I was a big splash. Holy crap, I'm winning. They got a ton of money. And then all of a sudden, it was my girlfriend. I'm pregnant. I have this. I have life. And they didn't win again. Do you think that
David's conspiracy theory? He thinks that the outside, the wives cause problems for top golfers.
Do you agree or not? Do you agree?
I don't think that's going to be a blanket statement. Like that's different for everyone because life itself can be an issue for every golfer.
Yeah.
So if you have the right partner, it shouldn't matter, right? Someone that's supportive, like going back to the Koepka thing. I mean, she came across as not as supportive to a winning golfer, not supportive to someone that's struggling. So
but she came along when he was winning in his stripe. I'm projecting.
That's my point.
Up.
Yeah.
He was doing it without her. She came along.
Oh, good God. Really?
Oh, yeah.
Like, seriously. he needs to take responsibility for his
David, you should have saved that question.
someone outside of himself, whether it's his wife or anybody else. You need to take responsibility for your lane.
All right, let's take a left turn from there.
Yeah.
So let's look at the contrast of Brooks Koepka, a guy who's won 4 majors and thinks he should win every other major, and his significant other, Jenna Sims, is saying, I worry about the future. The contrast of Joel Dahmen, who says, I'll probably never win a major, and his wife is sitting there saying, Joel is great, bigging him up any chance she gets, saying he does whatever he has to do to support this family. The family's growing. He's going to lock in. I know he's going to. Her having absolutely no worries about the future, and Jenna Sims sitting in their $30 million mansion worries about the future.
Craig,
That
I love you,
contrast
man.
was ridiculous.
Like, you literally hit the nail on the head. Like, I'm glad you said that, because that's what I was talking about. Like, if you have someone that's supporting you, whatever it is, not saying you're always going to succeed, but your chances are much better than someone's like, I'm scared, I'm worried. I don't think you can do it. I mean, that's what he's saying.
I also think you attract who you are.
I agree with both your guys' statement there. It's positive reinforcement. My question is when you change your priority, right? Everyone looks at Tiger's run, and you can look back at the math. You can look back, Tiger growing and winning, 6-7 times in a season. There was no other woman. There was no having a kid. There wasn't, I'm seriously, it's life moments and changes. When Tiger finally got married and then actually had kids, he already had 40, almost some odd 50 wins under his belt. Spieth went and got 5 or 6, girlfriend pregnant, and all of a sudden he was off the rail and changed. Like when you start, and I'm not making that going, oh, they caused it. The priorities change.
I think that's an interesting topic for the rookies episode, because they kind of address that there. I think that's really interesting.
Well, I'll pin it. I'm sorry.
Well, that hasn't aired yet. So once we get to that,
all right, I'll pin that.
Put a cork in it. Put a cork in it.
You can put that, but I think that's that.
No, I agree with you on that. Okay, so let's wrap this up. Okay, because we've gone long, and let's wrap this up. And final thoughts on Dahmen. Have you become a fan of Dahmen now that you really know his story and that you followed his story?
100%. I'm a fan. I'm on board.
100%.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of Joel, but I'm also a fan of now looking at other
100%.
players. I'm a fan as well, but looking at other players down the line that don't have the big names to see a little bit more about what their story is as well.
Which is what this documentary should be great for, right? Bringing names to light that aren't typically in the spotlight. But yeah, I'm a huge Joel Dahmen fan now and forever. And I do think that at the end of the episode, he talked about a lot of, he was saying out loud, hey, I know I can win. I know I can do these things. So I do think that internally he thinks that he can win, but externally he says probably not, but that's an interesting dynamic that he has.
Yeah. With a supportive spouse.
With a supportive spouse.
I want to thank everyone once again. Guys, it is so much fun. I love seeing everyone's different perspective. This was a phenomenal idea that came to fruition, and I can't wait for next week's episode. I just ask that everyone brings a mini shot. We're going to do a Duffers rule. Everyone together, we're going to take a shot, and we're going to kick off the American Dreams episode for episode 5 next week. With that being said, please like, subscribe, check us out, hit us up on all the socials. Let us know what you thought of all of the reviews that we've put out so far and any of the episodes. We all have our tags below. We're in here. If you like the professor's, point of view, or you're in love with, Mrs. Thompson's, point of view, let us know, because we're going to debate about this for a couple hours behind the scenes anyways. So we want to get back to you and chat with you. It's been an absolute blast and pleasure. Thank you guys all again for taking time out of your guys' schedule to join us here in the super collab of Pinehurst 6 and the Duffers review, talking about full swing golf. With that, I'm out. Subscribe. Love you guys.
Okay, thanks for coming. And stay tuned next week. We'll have Justin Johnson and Matt Fitzpatrick. And so if you want to do a collab on the 19th hole, let us know as well. So have a good one, and we'll see you next week.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.